Hi everybody, welcome to COP26, welcome to Glasgow. My name is Alan Somerville. I am the Chief Sustainability Officer for arbnco, and joining me here are Simon West.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Laurie Eisbrenner.
Nice to meet you.
We're here to talk about ESG, and we're here to talk about, I think, mainly the kind of S in ESG, the kind of social impact of ESG. But I think first what we might do, if you're happy as well, just have a quick chat about what ESG means to us. But I guess before that, actually, perhaps we should do a brief introduction about who arbnco actually are. Yeah. Simon, that looks like...
Absolutely, looks like I'm in that spot. Well, Alan, thank you very much for that introduction. Hi everyone, I'm Simon West, co-founder and CEO of arbnco. We're a prop tech software company based in Glasgow in the US, focusing on energy efficiency in indoor environment in commercial real estate. We work with some of the world's largest utility companies, have access to hundreds of thousands of commercial real estate, helping them and their customers meet energy efficiency requirements. We also work heavily in the commercial real estate sector with the facility management, property management companies. We built a fantastic team, we're up to around 50. And it's in a very exciting time, I think, kind of where we're at now in terms of the world's aligning around net zero, which is a big focus and push globally, with commitments made by governments around the world, combined with post-pandemic, COVID, indoor air quality. So that's kind of the space that we play in, if you like. Timing's ripe for disruption, but more than that, providing really good solutions to the commercial real estate sector.
Good. And I suppose one of the kind of watchwords at COP26 has been ESG, and how ESG kind of helps companies to deliver to their kind of net zero targets and their net zero transitions. And there's been a lot of talk about, how technology, is part and parcel or as a fundamental tool of delivering ESG performance. It'd be interesting, Maureen, just to kind of hear your thoughts on, ESG, but really, how technology is a kind of enabler to make kind of ESG performance actually happen.
Well, I think it's instrumental that you have technology now. Otherwise, the solution won't be solved. I mean, we're working so hard to try and actually get to net zero. And I'd say there's a lot of companies that have been doing it for years and years, but look at where we've gotten with it. So in order for us to get the push, we need technology. We need to have the data. Without the data, we don't have the information. So I'd have to say that would be the biggest priority.
Yeah, and I think that kind of data really is the kind of, I think what we've seen over the last week or so is the kind of golden thread that runs through all of these kind of global ambitions. If we're going to decarbonise, that's a kind of numbers game.
Yeah.
Really, and the kind of data that I guess the arbnco platform is producing is the kind of underlying golden thread of measuring and managing performance. I guess one of the aspects of this session is meant to be about ESG in its widest sense. So thinking about the S, and I think ESG can be a confusing term for a lot of people. Environmental and social governance.
Mm-hmm.
What on earth is that?
Yeah.
The E is relatively straightforward. It's about environment. It's about energy.
Yeah.
What's the S all about?
It's about the people. So it's important for energy efficiency, as we know, to reduce carbon. But in doing that, we have to look out for the health and well-being of the people that is being impacted in these buildings. So yes, I would say it's a social impact. And arbnco has actually addressed that by having a solution that also complements our energy platform, which is arbnwell. So it's looking at the indoor air environment of a building. So we monitor CO2, particulate matter, humidity, light, amongst other things, and constantly adding some to them. And in light of COVID, now we know more than ever Prior to going into COVID, we had customers who wanted these things. They were very proactive. Now I think it's a need. It's not a want. It's not a nice to have. It's very important to have. In order to get people back into their buildings, they need to feel safe, and this is all part of the process.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a real shift actually recently. Well, two things. One is ESG predominantly was on, a few years back was on the back page of these annual reports of major PLCs. It's absolutely front and centre of the first thing you kind of look at, the importance of ESG. As Maury mentioned, it's around the people. And I think it's got a lot more real. I mean, there were, and still are, and there's still a place for it, absolutely, but there were certain kind of certifications and standards you could achieve, which is important by having, whether it be fresh fruit, in the cafeteria area or plants, etc., which are absolutely nice to have. But we as a business have seen a kind of a real sharp kind of paradigm shift, if you like, into air quality, in terms of what's happening to the air quality within that building, and that's being driven by the need for really good ventilation around COVID. So it's got a bit more kind of hard-hitting, okay, these are nice to haves and good, but actually what affects the actual true health of occupants within buildings. And back to the ESG back page to front page, we work with some of the large real estate investment trusts who have vast amounts of commercial real estate, as we all know, with tenants. And I think the market was hit originally around the retail space, was always, kind of been hit by online, etc. And the office portfolios were kind of the cash cow, the secure, the earner, kind of it was there and it was kind of stable, and that obviously got knocked for 6 during lockdown. So that put real pressure on the investment, real estate investors, property management companies, and occupiers, and it turned to have a real focus on, okay, how do we encourage, if I'm a REIT, how do I encourage my customers, our tenants, to encourage their employees, occupants, back into the office? And that's where we've seen a real shift from, as I said, the nice to haves to the importance of, okay, what's happening within this building around ventilation? And that's where we're working with the likes of USGBC and our integration with ARC, which not only helps for LEED certification, and we've got some good examples where we've worked with some very large organisations who have used our technology to achieve certain LEED certification, but that very quickly moved into, okay, great to have for the LEED certification, but actually now we see the real power of your platform and technology to monitor the indoor air quality and get occupancy feedback over and above just certification, for energy efficiency, for example.
So, is it therefore fair to say that, since the pandemic, the kind of world's moved, kind of well-being, I think, used to be primarily about kind of, kind of occupant comfort and some of the slightly more, I suppose, arguably peripheral areas of well-being that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
Simon.
Nothing against, by the way,
Well,
fruit and plants
but
and
I think
buildings.
perhaps what's happened is that the pandemic has given the kind of owners and occupiers of buildings and particularly the individuals themselves a much greater sense of the types of space that they want to occupy. The fact that it's safe and it's healthy, and actually spending a day within a building can contribute positively to your health as opposed to be a threat
Sure.
to your health. And I think, is it fair to say that we're seeing much more of a kind of holistic sense of building performance now, that kind of all-encompassing energy and kind of social performance?
Yeah, I'd say that's very safe, and I think companies are realizing if they have the right environment for their employees, they're going to get more productivity. So, it's all related, and in the past, that may have been overlooked. I mean, now being able to measure CO2, you can clearly understand what those levels are. And those levels have an impact in your health and your productivity and your capability to do your job. So I think we're becoming more and more aware over time. More information's coming into the marketplace, and unfortunately COVID made it even more prevalent, but now we're here. And, having the solution that we do, we can combine the two platforms and make really good recommendations for customers and get a whole view of what's happening within the building.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is that people historically might have perceived energy performance and well-being performance as two opposing sides of the same debate. They wouldn't necessarily sit comfortably together, but I think given what arbnco does, we would certainly have a view that it's no longer a compromise, actually, that you can achieve both sides of that kind of performance coin.
Quite right, Alan, because they do conflict. You've got this conflicting between energy efficiency and indoor occupant comfort and well-being, but through the arbnco platform, it's actually the key thing that's been missing in the past is the engagement with the occupants. How are they feeling in that building? And we've worked with a very large HVAC manufacturer, a global one, and their challenge was around the social side. For example, was before we design and install an HVAC system, we want to know what's going on with the building first. And to do that, we can have sensors and monitors, etc. But actually, we want to know what people are feeling. How are the people feeling within that building? So, we have the ability to do that, to bring in that data from the occupants, and this is why we're working with this large organisation. Really exciting opportunity for us globally. But they're using the data we're collecting and the analytics that we're producing through through taking that data, running it through analytics platform. It enables that very large HVAC manufacturer to understand how people are feeling in the building. That helps them to design and then install HVAC systems to meet the needs and the challenge, the feedback from the occupants. But just as importantly, if not more importantly, ensure then that ongoing that the system's doing what it should be doing. Not just by taking in kind of sensor data, taking in real people's, what people are feeling within that building. And that's kind of, I think, where we're seeing that shift is definitely this whole focus on the people, focus on the occupants. And it's moving into different sectors. So we just won a really exciting contract with the government, with the Department of Education for schools, for example. Same thing. Not only for the pupils, but also for the teachers. Are they able to perform at their optimum in terms of teaching? To ensure that the children are getting the maximum benefit from being at school.
Yeah, I guess what we're saying is it's creating a kind of optimal environment for whichever type of building you have, or whichever kind of room, or whichever works. It's equally applicable in a library as it is in a city centre office building or a hospital or whatever.
Yeah,
I suppose maybe just picking up on that point you made there about the kind of globalization of this. I guess what we're talking about here is a kind of global issue and a kind of global challenge. But I think what we're also seeing are kind of globally applicable solutions, and I think the arbnco platform and our businesses has demonstrated how as an organisation you can actually use a kind of single source technology across wherever your footprint actually happens to be. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I would say being able to automate this information with large portfolios is really key, and being able to identify, visualize, prioritize, and then obviously make sure that you are continuing to maintain the health of that building through energy and in well. So yeah, I think the solution that we provide is something that can be done quickly, at scale, and can save money and time. And time is the key word here. We are now up against the clock. In order to achieve the goals that are being set at COP26, it's this is it. The time is now.
I think on that point is the scale is being kind of agnostic. So we're hardware agnostic. We're all about data. So we are a software company. We're not a hardware company. So we can integrate with third party hardware, be it sensors, be it BMS systems, control systems, and that's ultimately where we're going. And we're working with some really interesting kind of global partners on that. automation of building control. To where we're going very nearly live is to 24/7 continuously commission that building, continuous monitoring if you like. So you're permanently fine-tuning that building to run it as maximum terms of, critically, as we just talked about, occupancy, comfort and energy efficiency. And as I say, that ability to be agnostic is pretty critical. And then to the point with Maureen around time, and time is money for any CFOs or accountants watching. Great Joe's Lang-LaSalle 3,300 rule. Cost of real estate. You got a fraction, which is the actual energy spend. Then you move up a level to the rent, for example, but the biggest expense is the people within the building, and it's ensuring productivity, absenteeism. Productivity is at maximum, absenteeism is at a minimum, and that's all around your point earlier, ensuring that these places are an enjoyable, productive, healthy place to work, and that's really where we're at.
And I guess, well, maybe just picking up quickly on that point around sensors. So if you are responsible for a group of people, who are located within a group of buildings, and you want to start to generate data around the performance of the buildings and how it's affecting the individuals. I mean, obviously there are a kind of world of sensor choices out there, and I suppose given that we're kind of hardware agnostic, I guess what would be your advice to somebody who's thinking, hold on, I really must get some sensors for this building and let's find out what's really happening within it? Because I could guess you could go to Amazon and pay not a lot of money for something, or you could go somewhere else and pay how do you strike the balance?
Well, I would say that you'd want to find a system that can report back to all the people who need to make the decisions in order to run that building effectively. And it is really about the data. So it's somebody who knows how to take that data, use that data in order to produce results that can actually make a difference within the building. I mean, there are a lot of sensors out there, and the good news is our software can align with most of them. Some of the ones that you'd buy on Amazon, I think those are almost like for your personal use. So ours is kind of looking at a larger scale. Not saying that I suppose if someone wanted to try to put that together, yes, they could. But I would say that would probably be my recommendation first and foremost. And it's not, the sensors that we use are very easy to deploy. And in turn, they do a job for our software. So it really is the software, I would say, is the solution, not so much the sensor.
Yeah, I mean, as you both said, there's millions of sensors in millions of buildings all around the world, but it's the data, making sense of that data. I mean, we've heard some horror stories, even recently, some very large deployments of just simply a piece of hardware that tells you what the CO2 is in the building, and it's lost forever. That data's not going anywhere. That was a multi-million-pound deployment in the education sector. So again, it's where, to Maureen's point, it's where we really excel and start to differentiate, is that we bring in that objective data from the sensors, ours or third party, the subjective data, the all-important subjective data from the occupants, from the people, combining that with our analytics platform and producing basically actionable and meaningful actions, results, reports. That's what it's all about.
And I guess it's being able to help customers to identify right at the very start of the process what is the key data points that they need for for the outcomes that they're looking for, and then what's the most effective way of getting that data. And then I guess to your point, Simon, about how do you then put that into the kind of analytical machine, which then takes you to your point, Maureen, about how do you then kind of deploy that at scale, because that's what kind of gives you meaningful impact and gives you the real solid outcome.
I think it can be confusing as well, because you've got all these different standards, and that's where we're at. So arbnco isn't a standard, although that may be coming at some point down the line. But you've got ASHRAE, various other standards that you may, as a building owner or manager, may want to comply with. You can adjust your threshold within our platform which will set off alerts. So you can comply through our agnostic platform with an array of standards for indoor environmental quality, and you can comply with all them through our platform, and then set alerts should you go over the threshold. You'll be alerted, then, and with meaningful, actionable actions to take to remedy that. So that, and in certain and we know that real estate investors have, real estate all around the world, in all different countries, and that's, I think, the power again about this scale is a platform that gives that global solution to comply with a myriad of different standards, and we're able to do all that. And in conjunction with that, we have a really strong technology roadmap. It's really exciting. It's going to take those customers on that journey with us throughout, for years to come.
So on the basis that, this is everything that we're doing today, and I'm sure we would like everybody to think that we're at the kind of cutting edge of what's happening today. I suppose the question on most people's minds will be, what's going to happen tomorrow? What does the future look like? What's the really kind of cool stuff that's going to happen in the next kind of 5 years or so? And I guess from my point of view, I kind of see this continued electrification of buildings.
Yeah.
Buildings kind of going almost full circle and becoming much more naturally ventilated, much more of a kind of sense of that kind of indoor environment and the places it affects people, etc. But kind of data really being a kind of fundamental driver for all kind of decisions, whether they're design decisions or whether they're operational decisions. I just wonder whether there's any kind of stuff that you kind of see out there over the hedge, perhaps, that sounds really interesting.
Well, I think at this event, COP26, we're now finally hearing from all the people who make up the building operations, whether it's utility, facility, owners, all speaking the same language. That's something that's very unusual. And I believe that is very exciting. We're now seeing people collaborating. I mean, we had a conversation earlier this week with U.S. Green Building Council and Southern Company and ourselves, talking about our smart technology. It's unique to have all three of those folks in the room kind of spreading that word, because before it was pretty disconnected. I think now what you're seeing is that this is all coming together, and it's going to take collaboration. Yeah. I mean, that's another key point that's being made through COP26. Collaboration, that's what needs to happen. So I for me personally, that's what I see different and exciting.
Yeah, on that, I completely agree. Here at COP26 is all about nations coming together, working together, to reach our net zero targets. And on that point of working together, it's the word which I know you're fond of, interoperability, famous word. And that's really what it's all about. So it's as Maureen said, it's the not only interoperability, easy for me to say, of data systems and technologies and platforms, because people just want to log into one platform and get the answers. But it's also, as Maureen said, it's the working together with partners. So let's not look at them maybe as competitors. How can we leverage, partner strategically, to get the benefit from other technology. We don't have all the solutions for sure. We don't want to have all the answers because we're very focused on where we're at. But we're extremely open and keen, and have done and will continue to look for strategic partnership opportunities where we can collaborate. Integrate with those partners for technology to give ultimately, we all know commercial real estate's a big emitter of emissions. And I think that's really what we're coming to, is that working together, with partners, with people, with occupants, with facilities management people, with manufacturers. How can we all work together to find an answer to this global challenge?
Well, and I think the future of ESG performance for an organisation is about the integration of those ESG principles into the kind of operational model of the business of the organisation. I think what we're seeing here is actually we're seeing that integration happening in a kind of market ecosystem. Yeah. Almost where all these kind of players that previously would have been doing their own thing are all now kind of integrating
Yeah.
together. But again, data really being at the kind of heart of all of that, kind of driving performance and hopefully producing the evidence of outcomes and impacts at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it's been, we've been at this for quite some time. Really, developing the software, working with some of the world's smartest building scientists and physicists. That's part of our team. Very proud to actually have them here, understanding exactly what's happening within these commercial buildings. So having the solution, being able to be part of it, and the global solution is just a really exciting place to be. And
yeah
and we're excited about what's going to happen with COP26. So.